you're not being told the full truth about AI, not because people don't know, but because the people who do know aren't saying everything. And according to insiders, that might be intentional. Because behind the scenes, the AI industry looks very different from what you're being shown. Let me explain. Recently, a journalist spoke to dozens of employees inside the world's biggest AI companies. Not outsiders, not critics. The people actually building this technology. And what they found was unsettling. Because while the public narrative is calm, controlled, even optimistic, privately many insiders are far more concerned than they're allowed to say. Not necessarily because AI is about to go rogue, but because of how fast things are moving and how little transparency there really is. Here's where it gets interesting. We've all been told that AI is progressing rapidly, right? That we're heading towards something called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, a system that can think, learn, and perform tasks at or beyond human level. But according to this investigation, AGI might not just be a scientific goal, it might also be a narrative, a story, something that helps companies raise billions of dollars, attract the best talent, and create a sense of urgency. Because if you can convince the world that AGI is just around the corner, then suddenly speed becomes everything, and slowing down is no longer an option. Now add another layer to this. You've probably heard that there's an AI arms race, the US versus China, company versus company, everyone racing to build the most powerful system first. But what if that narrative is also exaggerated? Because if you frame AI as a race, then safety becomes secondary, regulation becomes a threat, and questioning the pace starts to look like falling behind. But here's the real issue. It's not just what's being said, it's what's not being said. Because the people inside these companies are often bound by strict agreements, NDAs, internal policies, cultural pressure. Which means even if they have concerns, they can't always share them publicly. So the version of reality you're seeing is filtered. Carefully, strategically. And this leads to a bigger problem. We're entering a world where a small number of companies control extremely powerful systems. Systems that can write code, persuade, automate entire workflows. And yet, we have very limited visibility into how they actually work, or how fast they're improving. There's also part of this story that almost nobody talks about. AI is often presented as fully automated, clean, efficient, almost magical. But behind the scenes, there are thousands of human workers training these systems, labeling data, reviewing outputs, filtering content, sometimes exposed to disturbing material, often underpaid, completely invisible. So while AI looks like the future, it's still deeply dependent on human labour in the present. Now let's talk about what's coming next. One of the biggest warnings from insiders isn't about superintelligence. It's about automation, specifically something called agentic AI. AI that doesn't just respond to prompts, but can take actions on its own, plan, execute, adapt. That's where things start to change. Because when AI can do that, you're no longer just replacing tasks, you're replacing entire jobs, white-collar jobs, faster than most people expect. So where does this leave us? Is AI dangerous? Maybe. Is it overhyped? Sometimes. But the real issue isn't the technology itself, it's the information gap between what's happening inside these companies and what the public is being told. Because when a handful of organizations control the most powerful tools ever created, and also control the narrative around them, you don't just have a technology shift, you have a power shift, so don't panic. But don't blindly trust either. Pay attention. Ask questions. Because the future of AI won't just be shaped by what it can do, but by who decides what you're allowed to know about it. I'm Hakeem Mamdani, and this is Digest of All Conversations. If you want clear, honest breakdowns of the conversations shaping our world, make sure you subscribe.